Anytime I do any sort of assessment for a business, there are four primary things that I look at to see if the business is sustainable and financially healthy. By looking at these four things, it helps me to support the business owner in identifying their best path forward to growing their business in a sustainable way, to optimizing profitability and building wealth. So I'm going to walk you through each of those four key things that I look at to perform a financial health assessment on a business, so you can hopefully walk away from this video and do that for your own business. Honestly, most people don't take the time to do this for their businesses, but I really think that you should be doing a financial health check on your business, just like you would personally, at least quarterly at a minimum, if not more frequently, so that you can spot potential issues or things that you can improve to help improve the financial health, the sustainability, cash flow, all of those things that we need in a business to keep it running for the long term. When somebody gives me their financial statements and I'm doing a financial health assessment, the very first thing that I look at is their overall profit margins, and I'll do a benchmarking. So when I look at overall profit margins, I like to look at bottom line net income. And if it's an S Corp, I'll sometimes add in the owner compensation to the profit so I can see how much money the business owner was able to use in growing their business, in paying themselves. Like, how much money is the business generating for the business owner overall? I like for that number to generally be anywhere from 30 to 50% of revenue, but it depends on the industry. We have some clients who have more passive businesses, like health and wellness service-based businesses where they have a brick and mortar location. They might have multiple locations and they're basically hands-off in running that business. And in those cases, sometimes the number can be 20 to 30% rather than going up to 50%. So it really just depends on your industry, but that's where benchmarking comes in. So we actually have a subscription to this service that takes any privately held information that they can from acquisitions of businesses, from information that gets reported on privately held businesses, and aggregates it into industry reports. And so when we do a financial health assessment, we'll go pull the industry report for that particular industry that the business is in, or at least the closest one that we can find, and say, hey, what do most businesses in this industry typically see in terms of overall profit margin? What do they typically spend on key things in their businesses? And we compare that to the financial statements that we're looking at to see, are you on track or off track, in line with what your peers are doing, or are there specific areas that you can improve? In a lot of cases, I find that the overall profit margin needs to be improved. I'd say probably 75% of the case compared to benchmark numbers. And so that's where I will take it a step further and start digging into what is going on. And so sometimes it's expenses, which we can see just by comparing, the expenses on the financial statements to what the industry reports say. But in a lot of cases, what we actually find is the gross profit margin is low. So that is the second thing that we typically look at, is calculating gross profit, meaning how much are you keeping of each of your sales after you pay your team or pay for any products or supplies that you need in order to deliver that sale. So I talked through how to assess your own gross profit margin in another episode, which we will link so that you can go check that out if you want to dive into yours. But what I want to do is look at a gross profit margin. If you have that already broken out on your financial statements, we actually find that a lot of clients coming in don't have the financial records currently broken out in a way that we can get an accurate gross profit margin, because just to be frank, they work with bookkeepers who don't know how to calculate it and account for things the right way. And so sometimes we'll guide people through how to update their reporting. It's actually one of the first things our team does for our Done For You clients is we fix their reporting so that we can see gross profit margin. But in a lot of cases, I find that gross profit margin is low, either due to undercharging or having team members that are not being used to their full capacity. We also like to look at, if the information is there, we like to look at the gross profit and revenue by separate offer or business line or location, however you run your business, so that we can see if there's any specific underperformers or overperformers. We actually had one of our most recent CFO clients come on. This is a multi-seven-figure, multi-location service-based business. And we found, after we fixed her reports, we found that she had 2 offers that were actually losing her money after she paid her team. And so we very quickly were able to identify that she needed to scrap those offers or completely change them around to make them profitable so that she wasn't just having money fly out the door. The third thing that is important if we're looking at the financial health of a business is consistent revenue and lead generation. So it's kind of the next step after looking at gross profit. I do think that gross profit is really, really super important, but obviously revenue is also really important because you're going to have no gross profit if you have no revenue. So I think one of the things that we see businesses, especially as they grow, struggle with is consistency in lead generation and revenue. So you go through these peaks and valleys. You might have heard this called the feast or famine cycle, because what happens a lot of time is you do the work to bring in the leads, then you get really busy with delivering the work. Even if you have a team, the CEO in many cases still gets wrapped up in the day-to-day stuff. And then what falls off when you get really busy is the lead generation activities. And so you don't keep planting those seeds for more leads so that when you're done with that current workload, you have nothing. And then you end up in the famine cycle and you keep spiraling back through. I think that these big up or down, big swings in cash flow are really, really difficult to manage. And so one of the things that we like to look at is, do we see any unusual spikes or peaks or valleys in your revenue? And then kind of digging into, why is this happening? Are you having pipeline issues? Do you not have any particular goals around your revenue and the leads that you need to bring in every month? And we can help you set those revenue goals and figure out like how many sales calls, how many leads do you need to be bringing in on a monthly basis, so you can go and implement that and even out your cash flow in your business. The fourth and final really important key metric that I look at when I'm doing a financial health assessment is your cash and debt balances on your balance sheets. This is something I think is really important, is looking at, number one, your cash balance and asking if you have a consistent cash balance. Do you have the money to keep paying your team and your overhead expenses to keep the lights on? Or is there something that is draining your cash, which could be, in some cases, debt payments? So we see some business owners get into situations where they have cash flow issues due to either some of the previous things we mentioned, profit issues, or inconsistent revenue cycles. And so in the slow times, they end up taking on debt, which is sometimes can be really, really hard to get out of. So we look at, how much runway do you have in your cash balance, and is there anything draining it, whether it could be debt or it could also be, frankly, the owner of the business taking out every available dollar that they have in the business because they view it sometimes as their own personal ATM. And so obviously I'm a very big proponent of business owners getting paid from their business. I think that's why we started the business in the first place, but there needs to be some sort of strategy around how are we using the cash to continue to pay your overhead expenses, continue to pay off debt if you have those, and to pay you a CEO salary on a more regular, consistent basis so that you're not unintentionally sabotaging your business by taking out every extra dollar that's sitting in there. The other thing we look at too is savings. And so at a minimum, we like to have 30 to 60 days of cash on hand for a business, meaning looking at how much do you spend in overhead expenses over a 30 to 60 day period, sometimes longer, depending on how long your sales cycle is. So if you're in the type of industry like corporate sales, for example, we find that sometimes it can take you 60 to 90 days from the time that you start marketing and lead gen activities to actually getting a signed contract and getting a payment, especially with some of the payment terms that larger clients tend to stick people with, like corporate clients, nonprofits, things like that. If you have a longer sales cycle, we like to see more than 60 days of cash in the bank, but typically for a lot of businesses, 30 to 60 days of cash. And we like to see anything beyond 30 days sitting in a savings account, so you're at least getting some interest. So those are the 4 primary things that I like to look at when doing a financial health assessment for clients and for potential clients. So if you want to do a health assessment on your own business, you can take this episode and go do it for your business on your own. Or if you would like a set of expert eyes, aka my eyes, on your financials and on your business, you can go to trustyoungco.com/financial health and book a free one-on-one financial health assessment where we'll go through and look at each of the metrics that I talked about in this episode and figure out exactly for your business, do we see any red flags? What are you doing well? What should you do more of or less of? And what do you need to focus on next in order to grow your business, increase profitability, pay yourself more, and build wealth? So that's it for this video, y'all. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you back next week.